My name is Victor. I am the occult technician, and this is Mind War. Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code Mind War. Join the Mind War today. Enlist at patreon.com/mindwar. Now, back to the show. Hello everyone, my name is Victor. I am the occult technician, and this is Mind War. Welcome back to Mind War, folks. I appreciate you being here. We have a lot to cover today, so let's get started. Folks, before we jump back into our series on magic, I wanted to take a few moments to talk about something that's been in the news lately, and that is a company called Palantir, okay? So for most of us, when we first heard about heard the word Palantir, it came from Lord of the Rings, right? So I'll read for a second what Lord of the Rings says a Palantir is. In that movie, they actually call it a Palantiri, okay? And it says it's an indestructible crystal ball used for scrying and telepathic communications by the wizard Saruman, right? And so normally when we see an object like the one in front of us, we see it as a crystal ball. The one here is an obsidian ball. I find a much stronger connection to the obsidian crystal than I do any other type of crystals. And, the reason that I thought we should talk about this, now, again, this is a series on magic. We're not often spending much time talking about current events and what's going on in the news. And stick around, because in future episodes of the Mind War podcast, we're going to discuss using the Palantir as a magical instrument, how to actually practice magic while using the Palantir. But today, again, we're going to talk about the company called Palantir, because it is just in the news so much right now. And so what is Palantir? Now, again, for those of you that have been following the Mind War podcast, you know that I am a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. I was serving the Marine Corps for 20 years in an active duty and as a civilian. And I spent so much time researching what was going on in the wars in the Middle East, right? The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan were happening while I was working for the Marine Corps. So I was constantly trying to stay engaged, even though I was just in Southern California. That's where I was stationed, right? So I kept hearing about this company that was over there, and it was gathering battlefield information from all the soldiers that were out there in the battlefield. They were sending information back through their devices. And there was a company that was gathering all that information, processing it through algorithms, and then sending it to the generals to help them fight the war. That company eventually became the company known as Palantir that we're hearing so much about in the news today. And so what Palantir did is they took the software and all of the technology that they learned in the Middle East, helping America win the wars over there. They brought that back, and they kind of twisted it and turned it a little bit so they could focus it more on commercial and industrial business, right? So now, instead of a war-fighting software, it was a business software. Absolutely genius idea. That's exactly what you want to do. You want to take the same sort of tactics that you use to win a war, you apply them to your business, and your business is going to be successful. And so what Palantir did, again, is they came back, they created a few different software packages. One of them, I believe, is called Foundry. And so what would happen is a company would hire Palantir, they would bring them in, Palantir would install this Foundry software basically over top of the system that they already are running. The Foundry software would go in, collect all of the information, access all of it, and then through algorithms and artificial intelligence, it would start to create reports for you. Now, this is very important. Anyone who's ever worked in any type of business knows that information is the new oil. And so, most businesses have maybe a handful of what are called data analysts, people who scour through all of the information that the business is bringing in, because every business has information, right? And so the data analyst will scour through the information and then try to provide, answers to any questions that senior management and the executive team might have, okay? So the problem with that is there's only so many data analysts that you can have, and they only work so many hours, and they can only go through so much information at once. But when you add artificial intelligence in to do that job, now it's running 24 hours a day. The more you pay for it, it seems, they'll exponentially increase the amount of power that's focused on your business doing these calculations, right? So it's an invaluable tool. But we keep hearing it in the news today. It keeps coming up. A lot of right-wing influencers are saying that Palantir is this scary company that you should stay away from, that it used to be a government program called Total Information Awareness. Well, that was actually a military program, and I believe that might be correct. Maybe that is where Palantir came from. Maybe it was birthed from this Total Information Awareness program. Okay, so again, we're hearing it in the news today. We're hearing a lot of fear-mongering about it. So why is it coming into the news today? Well, at the beginning of the Trump administration, we heard about DOGE, right? The Department of Government Efficiency, headed by Elon Musk in the beginning, right? And so we saw all these videos of Elon kicking down the doors of all these different government institutions, all these different departments in the government. It was very interesting to watch. And as someone who worked for the government in information technology, I was so excited because I thought for 20 years, I wish somebody would come knock this door down and upgrade these damn computers. And so I think what Elon and his DOGE team, his team of computer nerds who had their laptops, who were following behind him as they broke into all these different departments, right? I believe what the DOGE team did was basically get administrative rights to the networks of each of these different government departments, right? And one of the issues with the government is they work in silos. This agency is separate totally from this agency and then this department. And then when you have to communicate between these agencies and departments, it can become very difficult, especially for citizens like ourselves who are out there trying to pull information from one agency and provide it to another department. It can get very difficult. It can get very confusing. And so I believe what the DOGE team did was not only did they go in and take a quick look at the databases and see things like the Social Security Administration's database being filled with people who are over 150 years old. That stuff's easy to find. Any data analyst would have found that right off the bat, right? But I think what's more important is they opened up a doorway into each of these agencies, and that's where Palantir comes in. So now Palantir, I believe, is going to install their software over the top of the different systems that each of these government agencies and departments, each of these silos that were running themselves. So now, although they may all be separate, Palantir is over top of all of them. And they have access to all of that information. And you might think, just like the right-wing influencers and the left-wing influencers, it's everybody. Everybody's against Palantir right now. You might think, well, that's dangerous, Victor. We don't want an organization or a company like this to have that much power, right? And I start to think to myself, again, as a citizen, it can be very difficult to work within these different agencies, the different departments. Wouldn't it be nice if instead of us having, as citizens, having to prove to the government, our healthcare records, our education records, our criminal history, all of our banking information, any of that type of stuff, wouldn't it be nicer if they just had it all in one place? Not only for them to access, but for us to access as well. Wouldn't it be nice to just go and say, I want all the information that the government has about me. I want to see it in one place, a dashboard, if you will, so that I can help, so it'll be easier for me to navigate all of the different systems that are out there, right? An example is, let's say you're trying to apply for some type of benefits, right? It can be very difficult. You're filling out forms. The government sends you a form to ask you what your name and your age is and all of these things. And you go, you guys know this. You know who I am. You know all this information already. Why am I filling it out over and over and over again? And my hope is that after all of this is that Palantir will create some type of system that we as citizens will be able to access as well. And I think what would be very interesting is if, again, one of the issues we run into with things like, say, disability benefits or any type of food stamp benefits or whatever it may be, people may not know whether they are qualified or not. A company like Palantir could go through after it has collected all of our data, and then it could review it and say, hey, based on the information that we have about you, you qualify for the following programs. Wouldn't that be nice? That sounds good to me. How about when it's time to do taxes? Instead of having this weird, relationship with the IRS that we have where we have to give them all of our financial information, even though it's so complicated, the IRS and the tax forms and everything. Wouldn't it be nice if they just had all that information and say, based on the amount of money that you brought in last year from the following locations, we believe that this is the amount of taxes that you've paid. Here is the refund or how much you owe. Do you agree with this? Wouldn't that be nice instead of having to do the taxes yourself? So again, is this the reality of what's gone on in the last few weeks and months? I think it might be. We'll have to see into the future if this system plays out to where the citizens like ourselves get access to it. We'll find out. But I think that's where this is going to go. And that's on the kind of practical side of what Palantir is, okay? Because again, we're in riot season right now, and we're hearing that Palantir's, taking facial recognition and it's monitoring. I don't know that that's what Palantir really does. If there is an organization like the FBI or an intelligence agency that collects that type of data, if they place Palantir in their system, then maybe Palantir would have access to it. But I don't believe that the company known as Palantir is out there trying to gather your information, your facial recognition for their means. I don't think that's exactly what's going on here, okay? So again, that's, to me, I wanted to share that because I've heard so much, there's so much fear mongering right now, again, from the right and the left about Palantir. But there's one more piece that's crucial. And this is where, as mind warriors, citizen samurais, guerrilla gurus, and warrior monks, we think differently. We've talked about this before. There is no fear here in the Mind War. And I want to tell you a personal story about me and Palantir, the company, not only the Obsidian Ball. So in 2020, Palantir went public with their stocks, okay? So that means when a company goes public, it means prior to that, regular folks, regular retail investors like ourselves were not allowed to buy stocks in that company. They just weren't offered. But when it goes public, the regular people, the public like us, the citizens, we are able to now purchase stocks in that company. So in 2020, September, the heart of the lockdowns, your friend Victor, financially, it was looking rough, okay? So when I left California, I had a decent amount of money that I made off of a real estate deal from a house that I sold. And then I had some money in a 401k. When I moved back here to Michigan, I purchased my house with cash. I purchased my truck with cash. I furnished it, televisions, beds, refrigerators, all the things we needed. And very quickly, all the money that I had was starting to dwindle away. And I was left with about $3,000 to invest. Okay, so again, at this point, I had the house, the truck, I had regular utility bills to pay like everyone else, but I didn't have a mortgage or a truck payment or anything, insurance, groceries, I had to get those type of things. But I was left with this last $3,000 to invest. And again, I had heard about this company over in the Middle East gathering all this data. And I put two and two together and realized that that company was Palantir. And then I heard they were going public. And they went public for $10 a share. Now, again, nothing that you're about to hear is financial advice, okay? None of this is financial advice. This is just what I did, and maybe it's just the luck of the draw, okay? So $10 a share is pretty high when it comes to investing in stocks. Again, the one thing about stocks is you want to buy as many as you can, because then that becomes exponential growth. As the stock rises, even if it's just a little bit of money, you make a lot of money. For example, let's say you already are a multimillionaire and you take $1 million and invest it into a stock, and that stock goes up 10%, you just made $100,000. $100,000, Victor, that's a shit ton of money. I know, but it took $1 million worth of investment to make it. Guys like you and I, we can't do that. We have to look for companies like Palantir when they go public. We got to get in early. Again, financial advice, Palantir might not be for you because the stock has already went so high. So what I did is in September of 2020, with a little bit of faith, I bought 300 shares of Palantir stock for $3,000. Again, that was the last of my money. I didn't know what the future held for me. I knew I was going to have to go back to work soon. I wasn't looking forward to that. And that $3,000, that was it was tough to part with at the time. But I knew something special was here with this Palantir company. I knew something big was going to happen. And folks, we are almost 5 years away from the Palantir company going public in their stocks. And as of this morning, when I checked, my $3,000 investment in Palantir, my gamble, that $3,000 is sitting at almost $46,000 right now. That is a shit ton of money, folks. We went from, $3,000, you can get a high-end computer system, nice TV, that kind of thing, one-time purchase, to being able to purchase a brand new car. The Mind War Estates, the house that I bought for cash that I just spoke, I bought this house for $50,000. It's an old ass house. It's 100 years old. I bought it for $50,000 cash. My investment in Palantir has almost made enough money to where I could go out and buy a house. The reason that I wanted to say this, the reason that I want to tell you this is because I spent 20 years as a conspiracy theorist fearing companies like Palantir. And in 2020, I said, I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to fear these companies. I'm not going to think these organizations, corporations, and institutions, which we talk about all the time. We know that they're dangerous. We know that they're bad for us. We know that they're unhealthy. But everything has a pendulum. Everything has an other side. And I said, what's the other side? We know this Palantir company is coming online. So how can I take advantage of it? And that's exactly what I did. I invested my last $3,000. I didn't have a penny to my name after that. It was all paycheck to paycheck after that. A little bit of faith. And sure enough, it's paying off tenfold. Okay. Again, the reason I wanted to tell that story is because there is no fear here in the Mind War. I want you to stop fearing these things and start looking for opportunities for growth. Quit listening to the right wing and the left wing grifters who are telling you to fear everything. Start doing your homework and start understanding that maybe in order for you to advance and you to go further in your life, you have to be selfish. We're not some type of religious people here where we say, oh, Palantir is a scary company, and because we're, right-wing conservatives or far-left liberals or whatever, we're not going to invest in it because it goes against our principles. Fuck your principles, make the money. You're not going to hear this from anyone else, but you're hearing it from your buddy Victor because we do things differently here in the Mind War. That's why we come down here week after week and share these stories with all of you. I appreciate you being here, and as always, folks, remember, harden your hearts and open your minds, because this is Mind War.
Wake up, open your eyes.
Welcome back, folks. I hope you enjoyed that little segment on Palantir. I added the infamous Mind War intro and outro statements there because I think I'm going to clip that part of today's episode and put it out as its own video because Palantir is such a hot topic right now. But for us, we need to get back into the book Magic, History, Theory, Practice. We're going to pick up where we left off on page 34. Let's get back to it here. It says this: Leo Frobenius describes a sacrificial ceremony which not long ago was still commonly practiced by the African Yoruba people on the occasion of the induction of the Ogbani secret society. Okay, so we have what looks to be probably a researcher, an author. He is embedded with the African tribe named the Yoruba people, and he is there for, he's going to describe to us a sacrificial ceremony that they did when they were inducting someone into a secret society that they called the Ogbani. So it's interesting, even in, tribal, living, they still have secret societies in a way. Again, that's like we talked about in the last episodes, the initiates working with the magicians. That's kind of a secret society. It's hidden away from the profane. So Leo goes on to say this: when the sacred apparatus was displayed at the initiation of a new member, those present stripped themselves to the waist. They then stepped up to the bronze effigy in the lurid light of a huge fire and greeted it in chorus with a shout of Hakua. When the first sacrifice was offered up, sacrifice was offered up. A human being was beheaded in such a position above the pair of Ida items that the blood poured over them. Okay, so basically what he's describing here, As it sounds like these Ida items are some type of sacrificial items, or more like magical, items that they're going to have with them, probably statues. And when they did this sacrifice, they beheaded a human and then allowed the blood to pour over these magical items. It says occasionally, when a more important ceremony was deemed necessary, several human beings were sacrificed, and on the admission of a new member, a white and red koala nut was placed at the side of the effigy, and a second one in human blood on the Ida item itself. Okay, so when they were bringing people into the secret society, they would sacrifice several humans. Again, there is no human sacrifice here in the Mind War. We're not going to do human sacrifice in any of our magical ceremonies or rituals, right? The bad guys do that, okay? And when we say that, we're talking about the zombie, the, Night of the Living Dead, flesh-eating ceremony of the Eucharist, where the Christians go into this cannibalistic ceremony of eating flesh and drinking blood. I don't know. I just don't think that's what we're going to do. And again, you do whatever you want to do, as long as you're not hurting yourself or hurting anyone else. If for some reason you find yourself wanting to do some type of cannibalistic ritual where you represent cannibalism, you're eating flesh and drinking blood, you might be going down the wrong path. You may want to turn around. But again, who am I to stop you? Right? My goal here with the Mind War podcast on this series of magic is simply to teach you some of the universal techniques of doing magic. Okay? These are the techniques that you have heard about from all the other teachers out there, but they only will either tell it to you in occult or esoteric language, so it's only through symbolism, where it doesn't make sense and it's not practical, or they'll only tell you one technique at a time, which is kind of how I found all this stuff. I really went in and had to just pick out these pieces one at a time, test them out, these techniques. Do they work? If they do, move on to the next, right? This last nut was This last nut represented the sacrificial blood which the novice had to consume with his mouth. For this purpose, the candidate was blindfolded, bending forward on his knees in front of the images sprinkled with sacred gore until the forehead touched the ground. He had to jerk himself forward, blindfolded, to the images lying on the ground. He was guided until he was prone upon the earth, with the upper part of his body lying in blood. He had to stretch his head forward until he could pick up the koala nut on the blood-dripping Ida item with his lips. Then he ate it. Then he returned to an upright position. The celebrating priest then took hold of each of the Ida items in either hand, so that the chain by which they were connected hung down, and the ends of the figures, which were made of iron, turned towards the novice. Okay, so it sounds like he's holding two statues. There's a chain in between them, and now these statues are looking at the novice, the person who is coming into the secret society, who's being initiated into the craft, right? Holding the iron tips parallel, he first touched both of them with the corners of the candidate's mouth, then poked both of the ends of the sticks into his nostrils, and finally touched his forehead with them. This ritual meant to convey that the holiness absorbed by the novice in eating food steeped in human blood in a hollowed place through his mouth should also be transferred to the other parts of the body. This ceremony being concluded, the shout of Hakua was raised once more. Then a koala nut was shelled, one of its sections laid upon the breast of the female Ida item, removed again by the priest, broken into pieces and distributed among the people to be consumed together. Sounds to me like a tribal version of some type of secret society ceremony, some initiation ceremony. Again, I'm practicing chaos magic. It's a solo journey. I do all of this on my own. I don't have a coven at this time. But if you do, if you have a coven, if you have your first Earth battalion of like-minded individuals who you are practicing magic with, you may start to form a hierarchy where you're going to be initiating people into your order. And if you do, that's fine. Make up your own ceremonies, make up your own rituals. Again, do not hurt yourself and do not hurt others. And, again, if you find yourself going down a road that seems to be gruesome, you may want to check yourselves. Look in the mirror and say, is this really where we want to go? Is this really going to help us accomplish what we're trying, whatever the goal is that you're working towards, right? We'll go on here. It says, the cannibalistic foundation is still distinctly present here, but we observe that already a form of replacement is introduced, so that the human is not sacrificed, but instead a nut soaked in his blood. A certain process of abstraction already establishes its position, which corrodes from the original bloody sacrifice to bloodless replacements. And again, when you do your ceremony, when you do your ritual, it can be a representation of something. We talked about if in the olden days, if they needed rain, they would do a rain dance and they would create items that would sound like rain. They would try to imitate rain. That's good. That's important, right? Because it's part of the imagination. We know how crucial imagination is to manifestation. You cannot manifest things in your life if you cannot imagine them first. Imagination is crucial. And you're going to add your imagination, your creativity, your artistic abilities into your ceremonies and into your rituals. A very abstract form which the sacrificial techniques have developed in the European culture sphere, but still distinctly refers to the bloody foundation, is at present in the Catholic Mass. Here, bread and wine are the replacements, but the consciousness that this is the flesh and the blood of a human God is still clearly preserved. That's right, folks. You heard it from Dr. Ernst Schertl in his own words. It's not just your buddy Victor here saying that the Eucharist, that ritual, is a representation of cannibalism. That's what you're doing. And it's creepy and weird, and you probably shouldn't. Especially don't do it if you don't know what it is. That's one of the biggest problems. That's one of the biggest problems with the Christians who go in and kneel down and eat the bread and drink the wine. They don't understand what it even represents. You got to break free from that. You can continue to do it, but at least know what it is. That's the hard part. We can no longer live our lives saying, this is how we've always done it. Well, this is how we've always done it, so we're going to keep doing it that way. No, we're not. Or if you are, at least know what you're doing. The following is an excerpt from the book of P. Anselm Schott, which plainly illustrates these facts. Okay, so let's see here. Give me a second. I need to take a deep breath. Whew. It's a hot one today here in the Mind War Studios, folks. So from the book here, it says this: God exerted all means of almightiness and wisdom to enhance the sacrifice of the cross and to give it everlasting importance. Okay. He made the once opened source of his lifeblood into a vast stream, which flooded the whole of God's kingdom on earth and the whole of the Holy Church. As often as a poor human who is consecrated by the bishop as a priest changes bread and wine into the body and blood of Jesus Christ, the sacrifice of reconciliation on Golgotha is renewed. They're basically saying when you do the Eucharist, you are renewing the deal that Jesus made with God by dying on the cross for your sins. Hey, man, I didn't ask for that. I don't believe that we are born sinners. I don't believe that we're born dead. I think that's a lie. I think it's a lie, told to us in order to tear us down from the very beginning. They tear you down, tell you you're a sinner, tell you you're evil, tell you you're bad. And then they say, in order to be good, here are the rules you have to follow. And now most people would say, well, Victor, the rules from the Bible, the 10 Commandments is basic stuff. You're right. Human natural instinct rules, human consciousness, human behavior, very basic things, basic morality. We knew it long before the Bible was written, folks. We knew how to treat each other. It didn't need to be written in a book and put into a list. That's all nonsense. That's done in order to control. It's unnecessary. Jesus Christ is indeed sacrificing himself on the altar, truly like on Mount Calvary. The priest elevates him, shows him to the people, and by separating the body from the blood, the consecrated host from the chalice, Jesus appears as slaughtered and deceased, as a lamb whose lifeblood to the last drop has run out of its body. The word of the priest, which changes and separates the forms, is much like the sacrificial sword with which the lamb is slain. The breaking of the consecrated host represents the violent sacrificial death of the Lord. Heaven itself is lowered to earth, and earth is lifted to heaven. And heaven and earth are connected, reconciled, married, encouraged, and strengthened by the prayers. The priest enjoys the body and the blood of the Lord. Bullshit. And that's all bullshit. It's all fake lies. Eating the flesh, drinking the blood, it's a cannibalistic representation. It's hearkening back to the cannibalistic rituals that we just heard from. It has nothing to do with Christianity, if Christianity even can be considered a thing. It has nothing to do with Judaism or Islam either. It is hearkening back to these old cannibalistic cults. And I believe that Christian churches who preach it today are actually today's versions of these old cannibalistic cults. Of course they call themselves Christians. They have to. They have to lie to you. Get out while you still can, man. All right, this next piece is something that I highlighted long ago. Let's see what it says here. We learned that the connection with the demonic world is the foundation of magic. But this connection happens in the sacrifice. The connection with the demonic world. What are demons? Demons are caricatures, characters that represent the human condition. Pride, lust, greed, gluttony, right? 7 deadly sins. They're represented by Lucifer, Beelzebub, and so on. Okay? They all have characters because in the olden days, it was easier to teach the fundamentals of what it means to control your human conditions and to control yourself by using these type of analogies, using these type of characters. It was easier to pass down these oral traditions that way than it was trying to write it out in English in scientific form, the way that we look at, psychiatry and psychology and all that stuff today. That's all it is. Those are scientific ways of describing the human condition. Demonology is simply the esoteric and the occultic way, right? That's all it is. And so when we connect with our human condition, when we connect with the feelings that we have, and we learn to connect with them and then control them, Again, instead of having a knee-jerk reaction when someone hurts you to just go and get revenge right away, you take a step back, you take a deep breath and say, what are the consequences of me getting revenge today? What is that going to look like? And are there better paths for my revenge? Yes, there always are. When you connect with the demonic world, which is again just connecting with our human condition and our human emotions, then you have the foundation of magic. Because it's when you can control yourself, harness that energy, the anger that you have inside of you. Okay? You can do multiple things with it, but usually we punch a hole in the wall, scream and shout, yell at somebody who doesn't deserve to be yelled at, right? We hurt someone else because we were hurt by this person over here, right? All of this is the negative. This is the demonic side of it, the demonic side of the human condition. When we lash out at our children because we're exhausted and tired because our boss is a piece of shit and rode us all day, right? Your kid does not need or deserve to be yelled at because your boss is an asshole. But that's often how it happens. This is what we're talking about. The demonic. They're represented as these evil, scary monsters because that's how it feels inside of us. But once we connect to those feelings and understand them and start to control them and commune with them, then we have the foundation of magic. But this connection happens in the sacrifice. And what is the sacrifice? We're not sacrificing animals. We're not sacrificing humans. We're sacrificing ourselves. We're sacrificing the feeling that we would get by getting our revenge. Oh, it would feel good to punch that fucking guy in the face who hurt you, right? Wouldn't that feel amazing? For 2 seconds. Until you realize that you just broke your hand and now you're going to be in a cast for the next 6 months. Until you realize that you're going to be arrested and charged with assault and you're going to jail for a few months. When you have to work overtime for the next 3 years in order to pay for your lawyer fees, right? It feels good for 2 seconds, but then you spend months and years digging yourself out of that hole. Same thing with alcohol and drugs. Feels good for the second. Same thing with lust and gluttony. Feels good for the second. But what are the consequences of that? That's the demonic. That's understanding the demon within all of us. Communing with it. Not crushing it down and holding it down and saying, oh, you're evil. This feeling of lust that I have is evil. And I have to suppress it until, like we've learned, until it springs forth and now you the other side of the pendulum and you're out being a sex freak, right? You have to get back to the middle. Back to the center X. And we do that again as the sacrifice. We are the sacrifice. We sacrifice the things in our life in order to become the new. We sacrifice the old us to become the new us. We get it now? Is everybody starting to understand it? I hope so. I know you are. I know you are. The sacrifice creates the state of ecstasy where the human connects with the cosmic forces so that he is able to perform magic effects. J.W. Howard writes about this. During the sacrifice, it is above all during the enjoyment of the sacrificial potion or the sacrificial meal, and the gods participate, or that their secret strength breezes, which creates such enthusiastic heaven-assailing ecstasy, which lets all gravity of the earth vanishing in the beatific presence of the gods, who came rushing to the sacrifice with a thirsting desire, or to which the one making the sacrifice himself on the wings of the sacrifice is carried. Again, in the old days, you would sacrifice an animal as part of your ritual. You can still do it today. On Instagram, I had a friend from South America, I believe Brazil, who is an amazing witch. And he does animal sacrifices. But he does it the same way they used to in the past. They eat the animal afterwards. It's a ceremonial butchering of the animal. The animal in that case was the sacrifice, right? Again, the people are still the sacrifice. They still have to do the work. That's the sacrifice. You have to put in the work if you're going to change yourself, if you're going to build this new world that we were promised. But again, in those old days, it was more of just butchering the animal to eat it. And they didn't do it in a way where it's industrialized and factories and fed to us through fast food windows. That's sad that that's where we're at, you know. But again, it says here that the gods came rushing to the sacrifice. That they were enthusiastically participating with them in the sacrifice. What does that mean? As the people, after they sacrificed the animal, were eating it, the gods are eating it with you. They are enjoying the food that you eat through you. And again, what are the gods? They are our human characteristics. Okay? Just like I've said, when we take the magic mushrooms, when we take the THC and listen to the Gateway Experience tapes, the spirits are with us. They enjoy it along with us. The sacrifice in that scenario, we are the sacrifice because we are the ones ingesting the drugs. We sacrifice our own body. And the fact that for the next 3 to 4 hours, we're going to be having this, amazing event occur within us. That's the sacrifice. And the gods come to us and through us and experience it through us. That's the beauty, right? And the spirits that you're working with, the gods that you're working with, they can be right there with you in every meal. It's just, are you focusing? Are you recognizing that they're there with you, right? The more or less abstract and essentially atheistic-oriented concentration practices of today's yogis, for example, aim at nothing else than the connection with the world above to harness the yoga yoke, the paracosmic forces, and must consequently be seen as very abstract forms of the sacrifice. It is not by accident that the old sacrificial words Brahman and Om still have a preeminent part today, and that also the old sacrificial dances still shine through in their standing and sitting practices. Okay. Again, the yogis, the guys who practice yoga, right? Again, atheistic oriented. Okay, so they're not bringing gods and spirits into it the same way that we aren't here. When I say the gods and the spirits, again, it's not the characters that we see. It's those human feelings that we have. Those are the gods, right? It says they are essentially atheistic oriented and concentration practices. That's so crucial. Concentration has to be a major part in what you're doing when you practice magic. You have to be focused on what you're doing. You cannot let your mind just run wild. We talked about this before. If you're doing the 1-year patterning tape in the Gateway Experience tapes, where Robert Monroe is telling you, visualize your future for the next year and it will come true. You're listening to that tape and you're telling the universe, here's what I want to manifest for the next year. You have to be so focused and concentrate so hard on what you want for that year. Otherwise, if your mind is off thinking about all sorts of sad things and all the things that make you angry and all that stuff, guess what you're getting next year? Sad, angry bullshit. Okay? You have to concentrate. And again, when they do the yoga poses, they do the concentration, they are connecting to the world above, to where they can harness, commune with the para-cosmic forces, right? The absolute, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. You're now connected to it. You're harnessing that power. And you, through doing that, are seen in an abstract form as the sacrifice, just as I've been saying. The witches during the Middle Ages likewise had a magical feast and dance as the center of their cultic practices, and unification with the demonic world was carried out by them in the most palpable manner. As soon as contact with the paracosmos is made, the different paths of magical activity come up by themselves almost automatically. Some rays of light shall be cast on these now. When you connect in to those paracosmic forces, it's kind of like, what's the movie? Little Nemo, Finding Nemo. When Nemo's dad goes and he meets the turtles, right? The big sea turtles. And they're all chill like California bros. And they say, hey man, you just got to go with the flow, right? And they said, quit fighting the flow. Just go with it and allow it to take you where you need to go. That's what's going to happen when you start to connect with the paracosmic forces, with the absolute, with the universe, with God, whatever you want to call it. You're going to go into it early on. And you're going to ask for all kinds of stuff that you think you want. And you might get it. And then once you realize, oh, okay, I got what I asked for. So now what? Was that really what I wanted? Usually, if the thing you ask for, if you are given it to you, if it's given to you, you quickly find out that it's empty calories and it was your ego that wanted those things. And soon it will crumble away. And when it does, if you keep going in your magical practice, you'll stop going against the flow and you'll start going with the flow of the paracosmic forces. And they are going to bring the things into your life that you needed, not what your ego thought you wanted. The magical forces can always be directed in more diffuse or in more specialized courses, and out of this flow indefinitely various forms of magical effectiveness. Among the diffuse forms, it is especially the general determination of fate, which characterizes the most immediate and most spontaneous expression of magical potency. So again, if you find yourself in a situation where you're desperate to get out of or make a change or something like that, magic can be very powerful. and it can show that to you and make a change in your life and things like that. But you have to be careful, because just because you found yourself in the situation that you thought was so scary and so bad and so dangerous, and you just wanted anything to get out of it, and you just, please, whatever, please help me out of this situation, I'll do anything. Then you get out of the situation and you look back at it and you go, I think it really wasn't that bad. I think if I would have just waited it out a little more, maybe I shouldn't have been so irrational or upset or whatever. And then you kind of realize, oh, I made a deal with the devil to get out of that situation, and now I have to pay for it. So again, be careful about what you wish for, because you just might get it, but is it what you really needed? So this next part, not only did, it looks like Hitler highlighted some of this, but I did as well. So this next part's going to be very important. So let's see. It says, all men of genius possess this strength, and all peoples whose history did not just happen, but whose history did virtually condense into a myth, did possess it. With this diffuse determination of fate, the paracosmical demonic forces are without a doubt harnessed and assimilated, but they are apart from the given free rein in order that they are able to operate in an autonomous way. This can be combined with a lot of misery and misfortune, but always leads to a consequence with the deepest meaning. That is so true. When, again, if you try to connect with these demonic spirits, these demonic forces, the paracosmic forces, the absolute, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, and you try to say, this is what I want, do this for me, I command you to do this, they'll do it. And with it will come a lot of misery and misfortune. But when you do, the consequences will have the deepest meaning. Okay. So what is an example of that in my life? So for those of you that have been following along since the beginning of the Mind War podcast, I believe it was in season 2, I started really branching out. I started communicating more with different, comedians and stuff like that. And one of the things that I was trying to do through the Victory Work Apparel website, where I sell my t-shirts and hats and stickers, make sure you go over to Victory Work Apparel, my Etsy page. Links are in the bio, folks. One of my thoughts was maybe I could be the merch guy for some of these comedians and some of these podcasts, right? And so I was communicating with these guys, and then before you know it, I was welcomed into the Kill Podcasters Network, a group of young guys, very funny, very talented, had a small group of podcasts, and they said, hey, come join us. And so now the ball was rolling, right? I'm working with other podcasters. We're communicating with much bigger podcasts and real comedians, and we're reaching out to them. Heck, we even got one of our videos on Red Bar, right? Red Bar Radio. And so a lot of real interesting things were happening. But when all that started to occur, some friction occurred. And when the friction occurred, I said, wait a minute. What was supposed to be this fun kind of side project that I thought would be a great way to make friends and everything now is becoming this weird business thing to where I'm going to have to start writing contracts with these guys because I don't know that I can trust them to do what they're saying. One of the guys was kind of attacking me for some of the stuff that I did, and I go, I'm out. I go, this is not what I wanted. Okay. Again, I had asked the spirits because my ego was telling me, You need to be a famous podcaster with a huge podcast and meet other podcasters and do this t-shirts and all. This was the ego. This is what I thought I was supposed to be doing when it came to magic. I thought I was going to use this to make my podcast big or whatever, right? But when it all fell apart, it helped me refocus. And as soon as season 2 was over and I left all that stuff behind, we started with season 3, the Gateway Experience tapes. One of the most profound and fundamental years of my life. If you're new here and you haven't seen it, go back, Mind War, season 3, episode 1, start there. It's an entire year of the Gateway Experience tapes, and the story is amazing. And it has fundamentally changed my life in a way that I didn't know that I needed. I thought I wanted something different. But instead, the universe gave me exactly what I needed. And it was about going with the flow. Because in the beginning, I was using magic and I was going against the flow. I was trying to force things to occur that my ego said I wanted. But it wasn't what my life needed. But I kept going. And I finally said, whatever you want, man. Whatever the spirits out there, you guide me into what we need to do. And the picture became so clear, and I just started working. Again, I don't know where all of this is going to end up, but I know that if I keep going every day, something is happening, right? In the beginning, I thought, when I started this 7-year art project, I thought I need to promote this. Everyone needs to see it. But I quickly realized the art project's not over yet. There's nothing to promote. It was these type of things where I realized, no, now's not the time for promotion. Now's the time to dig your heels in and get to fucking work. And that's what I'm doing here. That's what we're doing right now in the Mind War podcast here in the Mind War studios. And in just a moment, we're going to continue on with my magical journey over on Instagram, over at The Occult Technician. All right, welcome back, folks. We're going to pick up on my magical journey over on Instagram at The Occult Technician. You're going to scroll all the way down to a post titled Worm Moon. Okay, and so this one was from June 20th, 2022. And this was another worm moon. Again, I was pulling the tarot cards on the night of the full moon. I found that simply just, it made sense. It resonated, right? We hear the power of the full moon. And it was, shortly after this where I learned what the new moon was. I didn't even really know what a new moon was, the night where there was no moon, and how powerful that night is. But this was another night of the full moon tarot card pulls. You can see I was at the kitchen table. We had the old Amazon pentagram mat. We saw the skull, that ceramic skull that I had made when I was a kid, and a knife next to it. That was a new introduction. And that knife is the bayonet that my father had when he was in Vietnam. So this was a very personal item that I brought into the ritual with me. And again, I don't know what the role of knives are in rituals, but I saw, in rituals and movies and stuff like that, they always had some type of knife. So I thought, okay, I'm going to add it in and we'll see where it goes. So that was the first night. Now, most importantly, this was the first night that I had worked with a black mirror. And the black mirror in question, that we're talking about here, was simply my tablet, my Samsung tablet. For those of you who are not aware, your phone, your iPad, your television, these are all forms of black mirrors. These are all forms of scrying mirrors. When you turn your phone off, you are looking at a black mirror. And you can use the black mirror, your phone, your tablet, in your rituals. You don't even have to go out and buy one. It's already right here in your hand. Use it. And you see that I have a candle there in front of the mirror. And we're going to talk a lot more about that, how important that is, and what's on the other side of the black mirror, right? But again, this was just another typical pull. I pulled 3 cards. I just made note of it. I'm sure that each of those cards had some type of meaning to me in the moment. They were dealing with emotions or something that I was thinking of at the time. That's really what these cards are, especially on the full moon, right? When you pull a tarot card on the full moon, I believe that the light of the sun, when it's reflecting off the moon, is just like the lights here in the studio. That shines down on us. The light reflecting off the moon, it shines down on us, and it shows us who we truly are at that moment. It shows us for our true selves. It shows us the true situation that we're in. And it gives us those answers through the cards. I found that the cards aren't something that tells me what the future is going to hold, but instead they tell me what my present is holding. An example, and again, we'll talk about this in future episodes, but my last few tarot card pulls have all been about abundance and love and relationships and new beginnings. And this is exactly what's happening in my life. You know, after Mother Mind War passed away, just a few weeks later, Callie and the Moon Princess moved in. I've been living with my father. All of these new changes, these new relationships, full of love and abundance, it's all happening, and that was reflected in the cards. Now, that was the last, I would say, about 5 cards it's been that way. But right in the middle of it, I pulled a card that was about deception and lies and being upset. And I go, where is this coming from? What is this? And it was the night before my Gemini twins were coming to visit. And now my Gemini twins are in their mid-20s. And when you get into your mid-20s, you often find yourself at odds with your parents. It's just what happens. And that's kind of where we were. We've been pretty disconnected for a while. But in this last visit, when I pulled that card, I said, oh, this is exactly how I'm feeling. I feel like when my twins get here, it's just going to be arguing and this, that, and the other. And I said, well, wait a minute. It doesn't have to be that way. And so I put all that stuff down. I said, you know what? When they get here, I'm not going to be an asshole. I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to try to be right. I don't have to do any of that. I'm going to talk to them about the weather. We're going to plant some flowers, and that's exactly what we did. We put together a memorial garden for my mother, for their grandmother. And we had an amazing visit, an amazing reconnection. They wanted to learn everything that I had learned about caring for my father, their grandfather. While they stayed with him, they took such great care of him. They were so gentle and kind and had so much fun with him. And it was that card reflecting how my current feeling was at the time that told me, don't do this. Don't be this guy when they get here. Don't argue with them. Don't try to be the father. You know, just be their friend. And we had a great visit, okay? Again, that's what those moon cards are for. Those full moon cards. Now, we're going to go on to the next post. Again, this one is also June 2022. A lot of these early ones are all from the same date because they had been transferred over from another account, okay? But we're going to be looking at a post titled, Welcome Bune. This was the first of the Goetia tarot card pulls. Goetia or Goetia, right? These are the cards that I'm pulling on the new moon. I pull the demon cards on the new moon. Okay, so what is the Goetia? What are the Goetia tarot cards? I'm going to give a very quick and simple explanation for the best of my knowledge. Okay, so from the biblical teachings, King Solomon, he was the king who created the first Jewish temple, right? The temple that has been destroyed twice and that the Jewish people are trying to rebuild today. They're trying to rebuild the third temple. But currently where the temple is supposed to be built is the Alaska Mosque, where supposedly Muhammad got on his unicorn and flew off into heaven from, right? So during the building of that first temple, Solomon was having trouble, and he called a fellow king who was, he was the guy, I can't remember his name right now, but he is one of the main guys from Freemasonry, right? So this character that was sent to Solomon was a Mason. He was the one who helped teach Solomon how to, make a perfect square out of stone and all of the things that Masons need to learn in order to make these temples, right? And so Hiram Abiff is what his name was, I believe. And so during the building of the temple, the story, something like this, basically. There was a boy there that was working with Solomon. I don't know if it was his son or Hiram Abiff's son or something like that. And the kid kept getting sick, and he kept saying that this demon was coming and messing with him. So Solomon said, okay, the next time the demon comes, I want you to tell him that he has to get into this ring, and then you're going to capture him in the ring. Okay, right. Weird story already. So the kid does this, I guess, gives the ring to Solomon, and now Solomon has the first demon captured in the ring. So then Solomon starts contacting other demons and saying, I have your guy here, you need to come get him, or something like that, right? And so now he starts meeting more demons, and more and more and more, until now there are 72 demons of the Goetia. Again, these are the same demons that are represented in the 7 deadly sins. They're all in the list. They all have different attributes. They all represent different characteristics of humans. Again, things like pride, greed, lust, gluttony, those type of things, but also things like knowledge and health and fortune. They also represent all of these things. You just have to learn how to work with them, right? And so when I first started doing this, I was honestly like, okay, what's the scariest thing that I can do? What's the thing that everyone tells us we're not supposed to do? It's the most evil thing out there. And, people, Satanism and this, that, and the other. And I said, demonology. That's what I want to study and get into. And so this is the first time that I actually did a tarot pull from the Goetia deck. You can see there, I was adding all sorts of new accoutrement to my ritual table. Again, we had the black mirror, we had the ceramic skull, but now I added a dish of water. I know the elements play a crucial role in magic. So we have earth and water and fire and wind, all of these things, right? So again, that night, this was one of the first nights where I'm doing the magic by taking the mushrooms, listening to the Gateway Experience tapes. These are the very, very early days. And I pulled the first card from the Goetia Tarot deck. And the first card that I pulled was a demon named Bune. And Bune represents judgment. And judgment has played in a very important role throughout my art project here, and is going to play an even more crucial role in the future. Now, my first name, you all know me as Victor, that's my middle name. My first name is actually Daniel. And Daniel means, most people believe it means God will judge, right? As if Daniel is somebody who will be judged by God. I believe that Daniel means judge of God. That we will be judging God in the work that he does in our lives. And one of the ways that I plan on doing that is in the next series here in the Mind War podcast. It's going to be a long time from now. We have a long ways to go in the Magic series, so don't worry. But in our next series, I'm going to be talking about the cult that my friend Deog, aka Joey, I'm going to be spending time talking about the cult that he is a member of. We're going to be reading through their teachings. They say that they are holy people connected to God. So we are going to judge them. We're going to judge them by their words and their actions. And now a few months ago, I spoke with Deog for the first time in over 12 years, and I'll tell you all about how we got to that phone call in future seasons, future episodes. When I was talking to him, I told him exactly what I was going to do. I said, I'm going to judge the 12 tribes. And he says, how can you? What righteousness do you have? What authority do you have to judge us? And I said, authority? Righteousness? What are you talking about? I don't need any of those things from you. And he goes, oh, I didn't think of it that way. See, what these people do is they create their cults, whether it's a mainstream religion or cults like the 12 tribes, the people who run the yellow delis. They create this infrastructure, this belief system where they feel that they're untouchable except for other people inside their religion. They can't be judged by anyone else but their brother. Wrong. You can be judged by all of us. And that's exactly what we're going to do. And that's why Bune, the demon of judgment, was the very first card that I pulled. Judgment is so crucial. You're going to use your judgment throughout your life as you deal with your aristos, as you deal with the situation that you're in. You're going to judge all the different options that you have. And you're going to look 3, 4, 5 steps ahead. If I do this, what are the consequences going to be? And you're going to judge which one's the best. Judgment is crucial in your life, and you're going to use it more. You're going to be your own judge in your own life. That was the first pull from the Goetia Tarot card deck, and it's been an amazing journey. And we'll jump right to the next one. This was, I believe, just a few days later, because I think the first Goetia Tarot card that I pulled was maybe not on the new moon. I think I quickly, during the next new moon, welcomed, and this is the next post, welcomed Vine. And it says, Vine appears during Mercury in retrograde and brings with them an eclipse. Thank you for your revelations, Vine. And this is a cool card. You see a lion and a horse and a snake, and they're basically at the top of these stairs, and behind them is a huge black portal that looks exactly like the eclipse that was occurring around that time. Again, it's personal. Each card is going to be personal to you. It's going to answer the questions that you have in your life, right? And they're going to give you information, and they're going to give you directions. And that's what we find in the next post. Okay. This is the last post that we're going to look at today, folks. So this next post, you're going to see my hand. And I have my watch on and my ring there. And I have the wooden triangle that I keep the cards on sometimes. And it's over my pentagram mat. There's the skulls and a little dish of water. And it says underneath the post, I was instructed to be on the lookout for my sigil. Can you find my sigil in this picture? So Vine instructed me to be on the lookout for something. Very strange. Now, where did I get this message, right? So while listening to the Gateway Experience tapes, the tape that I was listening to was the 5 questions where you go out and you say, what information do you want to tell me? And you do that 5 times and you keep getting these different bursts of information while you're listening to the Gateway Experience tape. And again, you're on the mushrooms, all of it's flowing, right? And so you receive these messages. And the first message that I received was, be on the lookout for something. What the fuck does that mean? The something that I was supposed to be on the lookout for was in this picture. And in future episodes, we're going to talk exactly about what that means and what came from it. It's a beautiful story that led to an amazing piece of artwork. And we'll talk about that in future episodes. Until then, I appreciate you being here. And as always, remember, folks, harden your hearts and open your minds, because this is Mind War.